Hey, good morning, everybody. Just getting the last steps of our live set up. Okay, we are rocking. Okay, so the title of today's live is "The Darkest Dark is the Lightest Light." And this is a really, really, really important concept because, and it's going to be controversial because it's going to ask you to start to see your part in all of this that you played. And in this world, we're taught that we are victims, and it's really easy to get into victim. I get into victim once in a while myself, and we want to be angry at things, and we want to lash out, and we want to change them and make things better and different. But we bypass our power by saying, somebody did this to me, somebody hurt me, somebody wronged me, somebody fill in the blank. And when the thing that did that to you is outside of you, you're kind of screwed. You can't do anything about it. It's like, okay, I want to go kill the person that raped me, or I want to go and plaster that on every other person in the world that could possibly be that. And now all of a sudden restrict everything and say, okay, well, all the world's full of rapists. And there's a lot of people that believe that. And it doesn't have to be a woman only or a man only. This happens in both genders. And in my experience, women do it in different ways. It's not physical in the same way, or I guess there is some physical, but it's mental. It's done at emotional levels. Very same effect and very same hurt. But that's for another topic. So what happens when you have no control over what happens to you? Well, we're like, oh, we're getting hurt and blah, 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 blah. Well, everybody wants to control things for safety. They want to control things so that they can make sure they never happen again. And that's a pretty well held belief in everybody that's in this world. But once you start diving underneath, you're going to start to really, really become aware that we have no control over anything. We're in a collective world where, how to describe it? We have all decided certain experiences, at least as we're traversing through 3D, we've now chosen a bunch of certain experiences to get us to a level of awareness. It's like a university, it's like a master's level in a lot of ways, level course in understanding ourselves. So we have to get back to the fact that we are all part of source. We are all part of God, the divine, whatever words you want to use, but that infinite intelligence, the collective, etc. And if we're all part of that divine source, the place that everything comes from, and we're just fragments of it, we came here to have experiences. We've came here to broaden all knowledge, all awareness, all faith, all this kind of stuff. And that's a really big thing. Can you imagine? And if you start getting in things like multiverses and stuff like that, where every choice and every possibility is actually lived out in the multiverse, and this awareness right here and right now has chosen one of these branches, and his name is Paul, and he does this work and blah, blah, blah. If we start understanding that we're part of source, and source is experiencing dark, light, all facets, to fully be aware of all possibilities, then your fragment and the things that happen to you were all inspired by God. And this gets really big because this fragment starts to become aware that we're having this huge experience, this huge change, and to not acknowledge things that have violence in them, things that have anger in them, things that are built on lack and repression and other things would be to cage up half of the experience. So we come in as part of God and we design an experience for this avatar, this body that came in through a through a mother. It was a baby, it hit infant, and it grew right up. And we had these things that we really, in the core of our godness, needed to understand and to be aware of and to experience. And right now we're at a phase in this world where kind of a lot of darkness has kind of reigned, and everybody's carried out a lot of really dark experiences to their visceral ends. Now, why would God do that? Why would that have to exist in this world? It's so funny to just, I make statements like that and I just watch people drop like flies in the counter. It's hilarious. But why would God want to do that? Why would God want to have darkness? Why would God want to have bad things like rapes or violence or people killing each other or wars or all these things? And we sit with it and it's like, oh, God's awful. Oh, he made this child die or made this thing happen where some innocents died. And we're all railing against it. Like, how could this possibly happen? But this is part of God. God has no right or wrong. God has no good or bad. God has just wanting to experience all. So I'm going to go back to my statement. The darkest dark is the lightest light. And this is something you can only really state with confidence until you've been through it. I've been through a lot of dark shit in my life, things like divorces and being screwed over by other people and things that I consider dark, repressed, attached to all these things, cursed by people. And I got to look at it. I got into points where people called me names, said things about me that I couldn't even respond to. The Tantra leaders in my community were very wounded people, and they made a whole bunch of claims about me from some things that I did that were very pure and intense and not within normal societal things, but they were agreed to between two people. And then they decided that that was bad and threw me out of communities and said awful things about me. And I basically sat curled up in a ball for 2 years with the repression of these two women and their trauma that were trying to things disgusting. And I couldn't do anything about it. I just sat there and I literally, based on past life trauma, thought I was going to be killed. I sat curled up in a ball in my bed half the day sometimes, just listening for cars' doors to slam and living out some past life trauma, weird ass shit that thought that those people were going to kill me. And I sat through all of that, and I went through the experience that precipitated this. And I looked at it and there was only good. There was only love. There was tons of discussion, tons of agreement, tons of consent, tons of all this kind of shit. And I thought it was going to kill me. I literally was suicidal at a couple points during that. And I got to the end of it and I looked at everything that I ever done, and there was absolutely nothing that I could judge wrong. I could have done a few things better. I could have signed contracts and got everybody to agree what was going on, but it involved the trauma of another person and a deep healing of that trauma, that other person. And I carried them to a space where it was released, and tears and frustration and other things came up. And then when they talked about it afterwards, the people that talked to them, their trauma was triggered by it, and they freaking projected on it and said, that's bad. You can't have that, because they were terrified of going through their own trauma. And now they were using another person's trauma to basically, I couldn't even fight it because it was like indirected. Not that I did want to fight it, but I got to the end and I could have screamed and yelled and torn down the community and said all these awful things and looked like some kind of massive idiot. But instead, I chose to go inward. Okay, what's going on in me? Why am I so afraid? Why is this thing showing up? Why are these people angry? And I got this massive gift because I thought it was the darkest dark and the most repressive thing. And I felt raped and I felt all this stuff. And I kept going down and down and down. And I found integrity. I found I did the right things. And I always do the right things because I'm doing it from love. I'm not doing it from lack, because that's what they tried to say. Oh, well, you're lack, or you got some perversion or whatever. And it's like, no, the things that I did in that experience could have been terrifying, because the amount of trauma that was coming out in the experience was awful. It was a bunch of abuses and other things that, to hear them or to even hold space for them, were jarring. But I sat there and I held, and tears were coming down my face. Tears were coming down their face. And it was the most beautiful, loving thing I'd ever done in my life. But some other people, looking through it through the frame of their trauma, wanted to smash and kill that and say, that's bad. And you're not qualified to do that. And bullshit. And I got to the end of it. And I was so much stronger. I was so much more self-aware, and I now can stand. I looked at every little piece of my lack of self-confidence. I looked at every little piece of what they said. I looked at every little bit of wisdom of the people that were doing it. And I started to find out that there were wounded little children underneath that just were, I don't know how to say, like, terrified of the fact that somebody could hold space for that, and that they hadn't received it. So they wanted to attack it and assault it. And it was their own wound coming out, but it reflected off of my lacks of confidence and my lacks of other things. And we all got wounds. And I had to look at every piece of it and say, holy frick, I'm powerful. And holy frick, all these things that were in my past lives, go look and do past life regression and all this kind of stuff. And how many times I've been killed as a witch or a warlock or whatever for doing powerful things in front of other people. And they were scared of it, or they wanted it for themselves. And the fact that they didn't have it, they had to smash it. So these are the darknesses that are inside all this stuff. And it's all part of God. And I got to the end of it and I had to look at it and I said, holy frick, how else could I have got this awareness without these things that I thought were so dark and so awful and so insidious? And I realized it wasn't possible. I had to hit bottom. I had to curl up in a ball. I had to go back and really close myself off from my communities and my societies. These things are all things that I thought were killing me and were hurting me and were bad, but they were sending me away to go and be with myself so I could ultimately be aware of why, be aware of all the bits. Without that darkness, we couldn't have done that. And that's where the darkest dark is the lightest light. And another reference I see, how many times have you been with the person that really is struggling and other stuff, and you say something to them that's really direct and really true and really clear, and they just get a little smashed by it, but you knew that they needed something to give them, or they basically were at the end of the friendship, and it was like either I said this or something angry would come out and be done. And then they're like really angry and they resent you and they hate you. And they literally have that hate for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And I've had that and I felt it, and it's just like, oh, this is awful. And we got to the end of it, and it's like, I thank God you told me that back then. I hated you, but I needed that hate of that person. And it wasn't like I just screamed at them and said, fuck off, you whatever. I just like, you're really being narcissistic right now, and I really can't stand with you anymore if you keep this up. And they're just like, oh, it's because you saw them and there was a truth in it, but they weren't prepared to accept it. So is that darkness that I gave? I gave it from light, but they interpreted it as the darkest thing. You just associated me with this awful thing. And do you think a narcissist can grow out of narcissism without understanding that they are a narcissist and start to be aware? And then that thing will go inside the back of your head. Like I said, for 2 years, it happened to me. And it'll be just like, oh, is that true? Is that true? Oh, and then just these things start showing up. And then you're ashamed afterwards to go back to the person that you just told you didn't want to be a friend or whatever. And it may take years. It may take a lifetime that won't happen. But in those places where I was in integrity and I said the thing, and even though it hurt, I knew it was the deepest gift that I could give them at that time. As long as it's done from calm, even if, let's say, you had an experience and you yelled and screamed at a person or whatever, but you still knew it was right, but that was the only way you could get it out, it's not bad. There's nothing bad in any of this. It's us getting aware, us being clear in communication, us being the light. And that light can look dark. It can be swear words. It can be whatever, but sometimes it needs to go in a form that will jar the person. And I want you to look at your darkness inside, and did it have a positive in the end outcome? Yes, it was dark and evil and bad and whatever you want to judge it. And the more you keep it in a cage and you're a victim to it and all this kind of stuff, you lose. So who's going to come along and spank you in the ass and say, okay, take self-responsibility for that? What was wrong with your boundaries? What was wrong with your brought up beliefs from your parents? What was all these things that made you see that as dark? And as you become less and less attached to be the victim and less hurt and less broken and less angry and blah, 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 a void opens. And that void shows you yourself and shows you that thing that needed to be smashed open and projected with darkness on, so that you could separate half of yourself and be stuck in this wound. And how did that help you, other than it slowed you down and made you hit bottom? And a lot of times you really fucking need to hit bottom. I needed to hit bottom more times than I can count, and I hated it, and it felt ugly, and I'm in some of those bottoms even right now. But it happened for a reason. And now I'm trusting God, and I'm trusting that I can't control it. And my future didn't have a big house in it right now. And my future didn't have abundance out the yin yang and all these things. I could say that's darkness. Look at the darkness that's repressing me. Or I could say, holy shit, look at the time this has given me to have clarity. Now I don't have all those expenses and all those things. So that dark thing has a light side to it. So what's your light side of this? Did you learn boundaries? Did you start to see yourself better? Did you start to choose better? Did you get pushed away from having more and more relationships that would have just abused you by you having that one big abuse? Okay, that gave me space. That gave me time to figure out what my programming was all mangled up with. And once you understand that, it's a gift. And if you take self-responsibility, you say right here and right now, and this is a key word, that everything that happens in my life is for me. It does not happen to me. You're going to get a huge amount of power back, because nothing's happening to you. The minute you are saying this is happening to me, how awful, you are in your victim. You've given all your power away, and you're just laying there with your tummy wide open, waiting for the next one. So look at everything with self-responsibility. What's in this for me? What could possibly be a light outcome? And even if you can't see it yet, just sit there and take responsibility. I own this. I own this. It's ugly, it's dirty, but it's showing me something. And you're going to be so thankful at the end, because that's the hugest first step to getting out from under that rock. And I know you're under rocks, because everybody's under rocks. There's so much shit going on in this world. Take responsibility for them. I own this. What can I do better next time? What can I do better? And everything in your world will change. And that's the key to awakening. If you're under this rock that all the experiences and all the darkness is put on top of your head, you don't know what to do. You're stuck. You're in the hole. Take self-responsibility. The lightest light, or the darkest dark, is the lightest light. And you're going to believe, you're going to know that in all your heart and soul one day. And hopefully just by me sharing my experiences, you got an idea of how that something really dark can turn light. And look at me, look at my light, my happiness, my excitement. I went through all those awful things, and I could name you 24 more. And I could sit there and be a victim. And it's like, oh, they're all hurting me, and this is awful, and this is disgusting. No, it all came from me. It all grew my integrity. It all expanded me, and I'm so freaking happy for it. So I got to get on another live. I'm doing a podcast prep with Andrea Atherton. I love you all. I hope this helped. And thank you for tuning in, and thank you for all the likes and loves. And just sit with that. and you'll be surprised. Have a great day. I love you. See you soon. Thank you for attending.